It's no news that King Marco's Juggernaut has been easily one of the X-Men's toughest and oldest enemies since Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced him in X-Men number 12, 1965. He started off as a regular guy who just happened to be Professor Xavier's jealous stepbrother. Everything changed for Kane when he found a magical gem that gave him superhuman strength and amped up his level of endurance. This magical gem was powered by a demonic entity named Cyttorak and activated within its host just by a simple touch. So ever since Kane Marco came in touch with the stone and transformed into Juggernaut, he's been an almost unstoppable villain, clashing with the X-Men and other powerful Marvel heroes like Thor and the Hulk. While Kane Marco is the original and undoubtedly the most famous Juggernaut, he's not actually the most powerful one. The Gem of Cyttorak has been passed around more than you can imagine, with its destructive power wielded by many, and amongst them all, the title for the strongest Juggernaut is actually held by one of Kane Marco's oldest rivals, Colossus from the X-Men. But how did he even become Juggernaut in the first place? Without wasting another moment, let's get right into it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Colossus? The famous X-Man you know as Colossus was a simple Russian boy named Peter Rasputin, who lived a quiet farm life in Russia. As a mutant, he can transform his body into steel, which gives him an incredible amount of strength, as Colossus. Like many others, Professor Xavier also offered him a chance to join the X-Men and to make a difference for mutants everywhere. Colossus was a gifted painter, but soon he found his quiet life dramatically changed due to the burden of the complex challenges and the constant adventures of being an X-Man. Despite facing many tragedies in the process, he's remained dedicated to fighting for a better world, for both mutants and humans. Of course, Colossus faced many hardships, but none were nearly as devastating as the loss of his family. His younger sister Illyana was corrupted by the demonic sorcerer Belasco. His older brother Mikhail turned into a mad villain, and his parents were killed due to all the dark schemes that targeted their mutant family. Eventually, Illyana's death from the legacy virus hit Colossus the hardest, pushing him to adopt the extremist views of Magneto and join his acolytes. But after the acolytes disbanded, Colossus joined Excalibur before eventually making his way back to the X-Men. When a cure for the legacy virus was finally discovered, Colossus sacrificed himself to activate its release. However, he was later resurrected by Ord, an alien from the Break World, which was a planet that was literally prophesied to be destroyed by Colossus. After rejoining the X-Men, Colossus played a key role in politically protecting Earth from a Break World attack. He also reconnected with his witch sister, Magik, and fought alongside her in the X-Men crew. However, Magik manipulated Colossus into becoming Cyttorak's new Juggernaut, to show him the effects of dark corruption. He later had similar experiences as an avatar of the Phoenix Force, and again as one of Apocalypse's horsemen in the distant future. Despite these challenges, Colossus and Magik eventually repaired their relationship. How did Colossus transform into the Juggernaut? Since Peter Rasputin, also known as Colossus, joined the X-Men in Len Wein and Dave Cockrum's giant-size X-Men issue number 1, his super strength and nearly indestructible steel skin have made him one of the team's strongest members of this famed crew. But there has always been one recurring theme with Colossus, and it's mostly him taking up the responsibility of becoming a sacrificial lamb in every possible crisis. Ever since he came into the limelight, Colossus has been known for his selflessness and willingness to always offer to sacrifice himself for the greater good. Even if the dude looks pretty massive and intimidating, he's actually the gentlest soul among all the other X-Men. Now, Colossus had always made strange choices, but his defining moment came in the Fear X-Men storyline, where he chose to make the heart-wrenching decision to inject himself with the legacy virus. By doing so, he activated his mutant powers and was able to successfully generate a cure within his own body, saving the entire mutant race from a deadly threat that held the potential to wipe out the entire community. Tragically, this heroic act cost him his life, and the virus ultimately killed him. Colossus took the virus to save other mutants because his sister Illyana had died from it, and he simply could not bear to see anyone going through the same suffering. Eventually, in a separate course of events, he was resurrected, which honestly is not very surprising, given how common it is with almost all Marvel characters. Not just that, even his sister came back to life, and ever since then, all he has been doing either circles around sacrificing himself or protecting his sister. Now, when the events of Fear itself unfolded, the original Juggernaut, Kane Marco, proved to become quite the headache for the X-Men crew. In this crossover event, Kane Marco becomes Kurth, Breaker of Stone, after picking up a magical hammer enchanted by Kull, the Asgardian serpent god of fear. This transformation turns him into a much more powerful version of Juggernaut, with even greater strength and durability. Juggernaut aimed to use his new powers to completely annihilate the X-Men, and soon the X-Men find out just how powerful he is, especially when they send wave after wave of their team against him, trying to halt his destructive path through San Francisco. But all their efforts proved to be futile. Usually, whenever the X-Men clash with Juggernaut, Colossus is often the first to take him on, as he's one of the few who can both deliver and tolerate blows at Juggernaut's level. Anyway, when Juggernaut went rogue, Cyclops was the one leading the X-Men crew. After a certain point, every single one of his plans to stop Juggernaut began flopping, and the Brood had almost walked to the island of Utopia in order to destroy it. In the final part, with no other option at his disposal, a desperate Cyclops ordered Magik to teleport to the Crimson Cosmos to meet with Cyttorak, and Colossus and Kitty Pryde insisted on accompanying her. Their last resort was to approach Cyttorak and convince him to take away Juggernaut's power at its source. After reaching Crimson Cosmos, Illyana informed Cyttorak that Cain Marko had betrayed him by serving another god, and very naturally Cyttorak was furious. He stripped Cain Marko of the power of Cyttorak, and this is when Magik offered herself to take on the power of the gem. But of course, Colossus simply could not help his martyr complex, and swooped in to save his sister by sacrificing himself to the power, so she didn't have to. Although Kitty Pryde was not necessarily very happy with this decision, Cyttorak spared Magik and accepted Colossus by endowing him with the powers of the Juggernaut. So folks, that's how he transformed into the unstoppable Colossus. Could the unstoppable Colossus defeat Kurth, the Breaker of Stone? So after Colossus becomes the new Juggernaut with his new powers, he goes to confront the old Juggernaut, fighting him to a standstill and quickly turning the tide against him. With the power of Cyttorak added to his mutant abilities, Colossus easily became one of the strongest Juggernaut hosts ever. As the unstoppable Colossus, he was the only one capable of stopping Marko, and managed to push him back, away from San Francisco, rather efficiently. The battle itself was a spectacle of raw power and emotion, as you could really understand how Greg Land's illustration brought the intense fight to life, with kinetic energy and explosive visuals that highlighted the sheer scale of the conflict. The rune explosions and the crimson energy that surround Colossus in these pages were particularly striking. However, before he could finish the fight, the serpent teleported Kurth away. Now, as the avatar of Cyttorak, Colossus struggled with a constant desire to cause destruction and mayhem, which clashed with his typically gentle nature. I mean, dude was a gentle giant for God's sake, but sadly now he was stuck with a more powerful form that forced him to indulge on the darker side. How did Colossus' new powers affect his life? Although his new powers made Colossus more powerful than ever, they also brought in a lot of complications. His longtime love, Kitty Pryde, broke up with him due to his constant need to sacrifice himself, without even considering her or their relationship. Not just that, Colossus also struggled with the destructive urges that came with his newfound power. He often found himself reveling in the Juggernaut's power, and struggled to resist Cyttorak's corrupting influence. When the X-Men split into two rival factions, Colossus chose to stay with Cyclops' militaristic Extinction Team on Utopia because he did not want his power to endanger the students at Wolverine's Jean Grey School for Higher Learning in Westchester County. Still concerned about the potential danger, Colossus later asked to be placed in an isolated cell and to be released only when his powers were needed. But while he was still wielding the power of Cyttorak, Colossus played a crucial role in the X-Men's battle against the Avengers during the Avengers vs. X-Men crossover. During his time as the Juggernaut, Colossus also bonded with a portion of the Phoenix Force, along with several other X-Men. This provided him with a loophole, and in so, hoping to rid himself of Cyttorak's influence, Colossus confronted the Dark God and revealed that he had become an avatar of the Phoenix. To his surprise, Cyttorak had no issue with him wielding both the Juggernaut and the Phoenix powers, as he appreciated the destruction Colossus had caused as a hero. So, unlike with Cain Marko during Fear itself, Cyttorak was content to let Colossus maintain both the Phoenix Force and his Juggernaut powers, as Colossus was extremely violent during that time. Cyttorak went as far as to dub Colossus his favorite avatar, and was unfazed when Colossus attacked him with his Phoenix power, effortlessly sending the poor guy right back to Earth. Throughout the crossover, Colossus fought several members of the Avengers, including the Red Hulk and the Thing. Ultimately, Colossus and Magik knocked the Phoenix Force out of each other after Spider-Man tricked them into fighting one another. The rift between Colossus and Magik finally reached a breaking point when Illyana confessed that she had allowed Cyttorak to empower Colossus to make him understand how it feels to be cursed. This revelation was the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. Eventually, she transported Colossus to Limbo and severed his connection to Cyttorak, thus stripping him of his Juggernaut powers. Since then, Cain Marko has reclaimed his Juggernaut powers and Cyttorak's favor, having lost his Fear itself upgrades. Although Colossus only possessed the Juggernaut powers for a brief period, the combination of Cyttorak's mystical powers and the Phoenix cosmic strength and his own mutant abilities easily made him the most powerful incarnation of Cyttorak's avatar. Not just that, this combination also made him one of the most potentially powerful beings ever to walk the Earth in the Marvel Universe. Colossus' brief transformation into Juggernaut cost him everything he loved. So what sets this sacrifice apart from all his others is that Colossus is practically living through it. Being possessed by a demon is already quite the torment, but he's fully conscious and aware of the sacrifice he had to make by offering himself up as the host for Cyttorak's power. As he battles Juggernaut, his thoughts openly celebrate the joy of being a martyr. Colossus seems to take pleasure in taking control of his life once again, and having the power to fight Juggernaut endlessly. He talks about it like an addiction, initially suggesting that his possession by Cyttorak pretty much makes him addicted to battle. However, it becomes clear that Kieran Gillen is portraying Colossus as a man addicted to personal sacrifice. Later in the story, after the threat has been vanquished and dealt with, we witness Colossus calmly sit in the ruin where the X-Men find him and discuss his decision. Cyclops was inevitably upset because he feared that the power might corrupt his friend, but the most significant conversation was between Colossus and Kitty. They were dating again during these events, and again she was disappointed in seeing her boyfriend prioritize sacrifice over himself, which is not exactly what you want to see from your partner, is it? Kitty was well aware of Colossus' irreversible habit of sacrificing himself. She even understood how overprotective he was toward Illyana and was in a rather unique position to address both issues with him. She rightly pointed out that something seemed off about the reincarnated Illyana, and this particular point later became crucial when the series relaunched and ultimately brought Magic's plan to fruition. She also calls Colossus out for his constant self-sacrificing attitude, because it was definitely not a healthy way to live. Throughout his fight with Juggernaut, it was clear he found some kind of release in being the one who sacrificed himself at every turn, almost like a burst of pin-up energy. But wow, we see that he doesn't even react when Kitty breaks up with him. This moment is significant for Colossus, as it reveals how much he's changed since his resurrection by Joss Whedon and John Cassidy years ago. He doesn't even shed a tear at losing the love of his life, because he seems more focused on living as a martyr. In a way, as Kitty suggests, this might have been what he's always wanted deep down. Maybe Colossus is simply not interested in living a happy life, but just wants to devote himself entirely to a cause. However, Kitty again rightly points out that his idea of what makes a cause greater is misguided. So in a way, it seems rather justified that she wants to distance herself from him, because if he can't see how his heroic self-sacrifices might affect others, what is he really sacrificing? Even Cyclops acknowledges that he would have made the sacrifice himself without hesitation if it meant saving the X-Men, and there is a clear parallel between him and Colossus. Both are important heroes for those who rely on them, yet they openly prioritize their cause over personal relationships time and again. They are well aware of the concept of heroic sacrifice, especially given Cyclops' dating history. However, their readiness to sacrifice themselves as a first option has been damaging them personally and to their cause. This issue makes it quite clear that Cyclops' 13th plan involves someone sacrificing themselves to become the new Juggernaut. Among hundreds of plans to defeat Juggernaut, the immediate thought was resorting to a heroic sacrifice. This reflects a shift from survival instincts to almost suicidal instincts among the X-Men, as their militaristic approach has blurred the lines of living, loving, and being free. So if you think about it, Kitty's rejection of this mindset and her choice to move forward is a significant relief. After all, sacrifices lose their meaning if you're not truly living your life. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!